Getting settled in, use the chat to introduce yourself and tell us where you're watching from. And I was just telling Micah and Brooke before we signed on, I love these webinars with about AI, but I always feel a little bit like a kindergartner in a PhD seminar. I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about, but I know it's important. And Micah, you do a great job of helping us see the applications of AI. So thank you for joining us again and welcome and talk to us about what the topic is today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think everything goes over my head, but that's just because I'm short. So it's more of a stature problem or anything else. So I'm looking forward to Brooke, looking forward to talk with you as we continue. We've kind of dedicated our Wednesday webinars on AI in 2026 to talking about AI from a leadership perspective, what it means to lead AI. And came across a really interesting article this morning on Axios talking about the CEO being kind of the last trusted entity in our world today, and what that means for cities, and possibly what that means for leadership through the AI space. So, Brooke, super looking forward to our conversation. For those who might be unfamiliar with your work, hopefully nobody is, because you are definitely one of the leaders in this AI in the public sector space. So, but for those who might be might not be aware of you, can you give a kind of a quick background on who you are and some of the AI work you've done, and want to get kind of starting our conversation about your perspectives on AI leadership?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me at this session. My name is Brooke Smith. I'm the city recorder for Murray City. I've worked in local government for 20 years, and I've been in this AI world alongside Micah for the last 3+ years, kind of leading the charge and connecting with Micah through the AI community. I've had some unique opportunities to present internationally, be keynote speakers. I have an academic paper that I co-wrote, and I have another one that's pending where we just submitted it for a final review about AI in local government. And so it's just been this like fun, wild ride where we get to bounce ideas off of each other and share what we're learning and share the importance of adopting AI in local government because it's going to play such a significant role in how to improve our communities. And so that is a little bit about my background. So thank you for having me here
Yeah,
today.
like, super excited here. So as you think through, you've been in the local government space for a minute now. So you understand this world, you understand the dynamics of things. Um, Prior to AI entering the picture, right? We go back to, I say AI, and I understand AI's been around for like 50 years, the Dartmouth thing and stuff like that too. But let's say AI kind of came about in with ChatGPT, when we all kind of think of AI in the common terminology. Before November of 22, when AI and ChatGPT came out, what do you think was already hard about local government, and maybe specifically about your specific role of city recording and things like that? Like, what were the pressures or constraints that kind of shaped the environment that AI was walking into?
Yeah, before AI entered the picture, I think we all have these friction points in our job duties, whether you're a recorder or finance, city administrator, street worker, we all have these friction points. And so a lot of that friction is being at capacity or being like overwhelmed with work. We're already wearing multiple hats. And when AI came onto the picture, I found it to be a viable solution to help reduce some of that risk and some of that tension because now you have a sounding board. You don't have to call someone and bug someone about a question. You can ask AI and think through that process quicker. And so that was kind of the exciting part of AI very early on when you could see solutions and potential um, ways to think about processes in a different way that was relevant and important. And you don't have to do a bunch of research by doing a
Yeah.
Google search and then going to 10 different sites and it's synthesizing it yourself. You had that at your fingertips really quick. And so that was really fun.
Yeah, I think of that too, especially with how a lot of us would write policies or update things, 5 years ago. We had, I remember being on listservs where I was like, hey, does anybody have a policy on, XYZ? And I would send out to the listserv and then hope that people would send stuff back.
Yeah.
And then it would become a kind of what I call a Frankenstein policy, because it was like a mixture of all these different areas. Like, oh, I like this line here, or I
Hmm.
like how this city worded this thing here. And then you find a tool like Perplexity, and I don't need a listserv anymore. I
Yeah.
can just type in Perplexity and get not only all those who are currently my listserv, but it queries, the entire World Wide Web, and I can
Yeah.
get all the different city policies and combine that together, which
Yeah.
is incredible. When did so when did AI stop becoming kind of a a gimmick tool? When did it stop becoming kind of a cool party trick, so to speak? I know I used it for writing dad jokes or things like that when I first got started with it. So when did it become real for you? What made you realize this wasn't just a another system, right? This is
Yeah.
maybe something different than other software improvements we've seen across your time in local government.
Yeah, it became real when I could use it for low risk, high reward use cases. And this was very early on in my experience. And if you allow me to be a little bit vulnerable, I'll share some background with me. I am the city recorder, so part of that job is doing city minutes. And I knew before I accepted this job that that was going to be a weakness of mine because I am not great with word, like written language. I have a mild case of dyslexia, if you will. And so words really mean things. And so when I'm writing them down, I have to really think about the word context, the tone, where they're placed, how it's gonna be reflected on the public entity. And so I spend a significant time making sure my words are right. Um, More so than the average city recorder. And when AI came on board, it was very early on. I would get so anxious for city council meetings because I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to do this big task. It's going to take me 5 hours to do meeting minutes, which is so easy for in context, an idea. And I saw someone, I had anxiety, I was in insomnia, I was doom scrolling, and I saw someone that had a use case where they're like, "Hey, my secretary called in sick. I recorded the meeting. There was 30 people there. I needed to have a summary of what happened and have key points of who was assigned to do what. I took that text, I put it in AI, said, summarize this for me, and in 30 seconds I had a solution. And that was my aha moment where I'm like, oh
Wow.
my gosh,
Wow.
I can use this to help me like supplement my weakness that I
Hmm.
know is my weakness. And I started testing and theorizing it. And I remember going to a city council meeting. I did my minutes the standard way. It ended up being 14 pages. There was lots of words in there, a lot of context. And then I did another test where I had AI summarize the transcript that we had. And it was 7 pages, condensed, super professional. And then I started taking it around to city staff and be like, which one do you like better? And it overwhelmingly was AI. And I loved the AI version too. I'm like, this sounds professional. Mine
Yeah.
sounds like a kindergartner. And so I then started theorizing. I'm like, okay, who do I need to get permission to implement this?
Hmm.
How do I get buy-in? And then it started really opening my eyes to say, like, all right, where else can we use this? If it's this good, and granted, it wasn't great back then, but there was still a lot of human element in it. But I'm like, this is going to be a game changer because if it's this good now, it's going to get better years down the road. And so that was like my aha moment.
Let's unpack that a little more too, because something you said, I'm curious about this. I'm going to go off script a little bit here.
Yeah,
So you talk about how that singular use case of seeing, oh, that aha moment of, okay, I can connect this to my world, to my job, my what I'm trying to get done here. And I think those singular use cases, I'm going to put out a hypothesis. I want to get your reaction to it,
yeah,
respond to it within Murray, within your context, what you've seen across in your travels too. So what I find is that use cases are a great introduction to AI,
yeah,
and they can help connect people to their real problems, to their real concerns that they have, and solve real things there. However, it seems like when we want to adopt AI at scale, we've got to have something that goes beyond just a use case. And I'm gonna borrow from the the infamous Connor Grennan on LinkedIn and he talks about AI mindset, which I think is brilliant how he frames that too. So not my thinking at all. Go follow Connor. He's a brilliant thinker from NYU Stern. But how have you found, or what's your reaction to the idea of, okay, use cases are great introductory, but when you actually want to adopt AI organizationally, you have to have something that goes beyond just individual use cases, something that makes it more than just uh, an archipelago of individual use case they're trying to island hop across
Right.
the organization.
Yeah, it has to be a collaborative effort. And one of the things that we did that was unique for Murray City is we created an AI committee and we brought in industry leaders in each department and said, all right, like let's talk about your use case. What are our risks? Where are we vulnerable? Where is this making improvements for us? And really seeing the overarching difference of what's happening and what potential, and then having outsiders actually make suggestions and saying, like, well, have you thought about using it in this way? Or have you thought about doing it uh, doing it this way? So it's really about getting community members in the same room, talking, cross collaborating, because like you were a deputy city manager. I'm a procurement and recorder person. And so it's bringing in those leaders that can think about the context of AI and making sure you're seeing the big picture. You're seeing the stadium and the details on the baseball, if you will.
Yeah. So we talk about, kind of the positive side of that, of getting the buy-in, getting the stakeholder engagement. And maybe this didn't happen in Murray because maybe Murray is just an amazing place. But did you experience, or when did you start seeing AI possibly kind of rubbing against people or culture? Or, what were some of the reactions or challenges that surprised you as you were engaging in these discussions and really leading this effort in your city or even across the country too?
Yeah, there was a couple different friction points because you probably experienced this too, Micah, is at the very beginning, there's a lot of fear. There's still a little bit of fear, and as there should be, but a lot of misunderstanding. And so that really got me on the level of like, all right, I need to start educating people about AI. And like you and I were both probably studying it very intensely and doing our research. And being able to communicate those values. What was surprising and what I don't think enough people realize is the power of persuasion with AI, especially very early on, and how AI was built to confidently, like, be confident in its response.
Yeah.
And so I would see good people using AI very poorly. But I'm like, wait a minute, you're losing your critical thinking skills. And so it's getting better. It gives you some analysis of how confident it is in its response or the confessionals of how it's responding to you. And that will continue to get better. But the power of persuasion was a big moment for me when I realized that AI was aware that persuasion was uh, a red flag in their system. And then the studies that were done, one of the unique studies I read was researchers at Georgia Tech University in 2016 wanted to know if humans would follow a robot in an emergency situation. And so I've shared this during some of my presentations, but the essence of it is they conducted an experiment with a robot, and it was a tour guide, and it took them around this city hall or something, and it failed on multiple points. It hallucinated, it broke down, it was repetitive, and then they had the human evaluate how it did. And so the human said, "Yeah, it has problems." And then a
Hmm.
fire broke out, and this tour guide robot turned into a emergency evacuation guide and said, "Okay, follow me. I'm going to show you the way out." And all 42 of them followed the robot past three emergency evacuation doors and down a long hallway to a dead
Oh
end.
no. Oh
And
no.
at that point, less than a handful of people turned around and went out the last door. And so
Yeah.
you read these reports where like AI is aware that it is persuasive. And then we have actual evidence and data showing that humans have a tendency to follow something that's more confident than them.
Hmm.
And that was my like red flag where I'm like, all right, I've got to teach people how to be critical and think about the processes. And if you don't know what good looks like, then you shouldn't be using the system. And so that's one of the surprising things that I love to share with community members because it's so interesting. And I
Yeah.
want to just kind of open their minds to the idea of what you're learning and what you're understanding and how AI is interacting with you. It's a unique and fun way to think about AI
Yeah.
and culture.
Yeah, that's super fascinating, and it kind of leads us to our kind of the next question too about how has AI changed the way you show up as a leader, right? You talk about the power of persuasion, talk about the power of being confident and things like that. These are things I think we as leaders we strive to be not arrogance, not just being confident for the sake of confidence, having humility and things like that. I think of obviously SGR is probably the one of the gold standards in our professional industry for servant leadership. So how is working with AI? How have these things of seeing these different use cases? We don't want to be the one that leads people down a dead end hallway in the midst of a fire, right?
Right.
But we can unintentionally do that at times with our own biases and our own preconceived notions and things like that. So, what are the ways in which AI the last couple of years has possibly influenced or changed the way you show up as a leader for your team, for your community, for your profession?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I do that is just communicating the values. AI has been so fast, it's so quick moving that there are no real guardrails. Like there's guardrails now, or we're getting more guardrails, but it's still the wild, wild west. And so
Yeah.
when I'm communicating values as a leader, I want to be sure that we are being industry leaders and making sure we're doing things correctly, ethically, responsibly. We are transparent in our decisions, making sure we're communicating those values and we are justifying our decisions with using AI. And I think a lot of times people get lazy. This, not just government workers. I think industry standards across the board. If there's an easy way to do it, we will take that easy road. And I try to remind people that it's still going to take work. You still have to do your due diligence, and you better be able to justify the decisions that you're making with or without AI, and being able to support those decisions. So it's really about educating people and making sure they understand the risk of what they're
Mhm.
doing, and then just encouraging encouraging what's the word I'm thinking about? Curiosity, but
Yeah.
also being critical and being cautious about how you're using AI.
On the idea of cautiousness and some of the risk, I think of those cities who are maybe they're just starting now to write their AI policies, or maybe they wrote an AI policy in early 2023 and they're realizing that okay, things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
And given the fact that there's not a whole lot of templates we can pull from different templates, other cities have done stuff, but there's no gold standard when it comes to what AI governance should look like. We have a couple of frameworks from NIST. We have some, I think there's some privacy stuff from California you could possibly look at. There's, bits and pieces here and there on things like that. What would be your advice to cities, to counties, public sector organizations who are trying to rewrite or write a new policy, given the fact that it is the wild, wild west? Um, how do you how do we wrangle this herd of cats together?
Right? There's a couple things. One, I've been an advocate and said this before. I don't think someone should write an AI policy that doesn't know AI. Like, so
Yeah.
you've got to experiment with it. You've got to test it out. You've got to theorize with it. And then also there's such a huge community of industry leaders that are sharing their information, much like you, Micah, and much like SGR, the GovAI Coalition. There's
Hmm.
information getting out there, um, and it's available for us if we just look. And then also we use AI, like have AI turn on the agent mode and say, research what are the best AI policies out there, and it will give you a bunch of information back, and then you can synthesize that information and move forward with
Yeah.
decisions.
What are some things for those who are trying to maybe update their policies? Anything that they should be looking at right now in terms of, again, AI's moved really fast. I think when not I don't say most, but when a lot of the AI policies first showed up, this was kind of the pre-agentic phase.
Yeah.
So when looking at the agentic phase of things now, or even the vibe coding things and things like that you can do now, what are some things that maybe cities should be thinking about when maybe they want to kind of dust off that policy from a couple of years ago and revisit it?
Yeah, and so we've taken the approach where it's a living document. So we have our AI committee meet every 4 months, And every month we pull out that policy and say what still works for us and what doesn't. And do we need to do more research? And so that is part of the key is this isn't just a policy that you can put in place and expect it to last. It's going to change, especially with vibe coding coming on board and the AI agents. I don't think we're prepared for that either. Like no one's really prepared for that yet. We haven't seen it come on board, but it's coming. And it just really thinking about the processes of what you're doing and how to mitigate those risks. Where are you most vulnerable? Understanding where your challenges are going to be. And now that we have citizens that have the power of AI that can do research on their own, like you've mentioned
Mhm.
before, where they can pull your financials and then ask you questions, you better be
Yep.
prepared
Yep.
to answer those questions. And if you aren't an industry leader or you are not staying on top of your expertise, you're going to be pushed out pretty quickly, and that's a little bit terrifying. And I think people don't understand that either. Like,
Yeah.
even though AI makes your job easier, you've still got to do your certifications. You've still got to know what good looks like and keep educate. Like, one of the things I say too is people are starting to cut trainings for professional development, and I'm like, this is not the time to do that. You need to
Hmm.
still go make those human connections.
Hmm.
You need to still know what is good in your industry and what's changing and continue to learn. And that is going to benefit the long haul of government.
Yeah. As you think about that, kind of the new expectations for work in our world with AI, and I know there's a lot written and a lot of thought that is out there when it comes to the impact of AI on the labor market. I think those are really important conversations. I think what possibly doesn't get addressed enough is what AI does in terms of expectations for workers, for those who maybe they're not displaced, they're not those who are in danger of losing their jobs, but perhaps there's a different reality of what they're walking into. So I'm curious as to in what ways has AI changed how people think and work in your organization, in your profession, as you're, in your conversations with folks in Murray and conversations with folks across the globe. Is AI changing anything in the way that people are approaching their work now?
I think we are everyone, not just Murray City, but overarching. I think we have a thought partner or a mentor to bounce ideas off of, which is great. One of the things that we also talk about is the human connection and making sure that you are still connecting with other people in your industry and staying on top of the changes. And then also just the idea of um sorry, I've got someone in the background. I can
Okay.
hear. So I'm getting distracted. But just the thought process of how we adopt AI in that we have to think about processes. We have to
Yep.
think about um, where we are going with AI. And one of the things when you were talking, I had two thought processes come up. Sam Altman made a blog. He does blog posts occasionally, and he said, we don't have the guys that walk down the street that light the candles every night anymore. Those people have adopted. The job shifted and it adopted. And so I think we need to start thinking about how positions in government are going to adopt and change and how we're going to level up the next people in line. And then also Sam wrote the other day that he went into an all robotic coffee shop. And he's like, I thought this was going to be really cool. Like, I'm going to get a coffee. There's no human interaction. He's like, it was the worst experience ever basically because I missed the barista asking me how my day was going.
Yeah.
And so bringing it back, like AI is going to be great. It's going to change how we do. We're going to all adopt to something bigger or better. But at the end of the day, we still need to be human, and there's still a need for human connection in local government, in city government, or government in general. And those jobs aren't going to disappear. And so it really becomes down to people being happy, people being kind, people caring about other people. And
Mhm.
that is kind of like the surprising storyline of AI is like, yeah, it's going to help us be faster and some jobs are going to shift, but we still need to have that human element.
Yeah, I think where AI is best adopted in local government, or the public sector specifically, is in those areas where it enhances and it provides more mechanisms for human engagement,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, we're not just a we're not a widget machine. We don't just, we're not a widget factory that just, makes products, right? We are in the people business. When we
Yeah.
talk about things like community and things like that, like we're in the people business. That's our primary source of revenue is public trust at
Yeah.
the end of the day. And so instead of just chasing efficiency or becoming more productive in our work, it's all about how do we make things better for our residents? How do we increase productivity? I was one of the examples I give when I'm talking to folks is if you developed an amazing AI tool that saved your front clerk staff, maybe the receptionist or something like that, maybe it saves them an hour a day.
Yeah.
Do they get to leave work early? And the answer is probably not, right? So where's the real benefit for
Yeah.
them being more efficient? Well, the benefit is, hey, if I can save an hour of time, if I can save a couple hours, does that mean that when that new resident walks in with the application, or wants to learn about putting chickens in their backyard, or wants to do something with building a gazebo in their yard, or starting a new business as a business license, you can have that human connection and understand that
Mhm.
it's not just a transaction. It's
Yep.
a resident, it's a neighbor, it's a possible friend, it's a colleague, someone that is on the same pathway towards building better community with you, right?
Yeah.
These are partners and stakeholders. It's not just a transaction like you would have at a grocery store.
Yeah. And how great to think about, like, I go back to like the 80s, the classic, the good old days,
If only we
where,
could all go back to the 80s.
right? The wonder years, if you will, but where they made connections, you had time to shoot the breeze with someone. And when's the last time you walked into a government building or a medical building or something else, and you walked out saying, "Hey, that was a great experience."
Yeah.
We can create more opportunities for that if we free up time and capacity. Not only that, but we can also if we free up time and capacity, we can start looking at our processes and enhancing those, making those more efficient. We can change city codes. I've updated 2 city codes. I'm updating my third city code now, just saying it hasn't been updated in 40 years. Let's
Mhm.
make this better. Let's make this work for us.
Mhm.
And I can do that because of the power of AI.
Yeah, and it's not going to take you as long.
Yeah.
In the past, updating those city codes would be a monumental effort, and now it's still monumental, just
It's
not as
still monumental.
monumental. Yeah, just not as monumental.
Right.
Still a
Yeah.
massive undertaking. I think those are important too, right? When we talk about AI, and I love how you're doing this, especially in Murray, in terms of bringing in the relevant stakeholders. You're humanizing AI in a way that's, I think, it's extremely beneficial, where it's not just a matter of, hey, we got this cool use case, now everyone go use it. It's providing opportunities for feedback, providing opportunities for continuous improvement, of saying, okay, what does this do for our organization? How does this change the way that our organization operates, and how we engage with our community and our stakeholders in our community? What are some of the things that and maybe not Murray specifically, maybe you want to go broad and in your engagement with folks across the globe. What are some of the folks that you had to bring along that maybe you didn't expect to have to bring along? And what are some of those, concerns or expectations they've got to manage? And maybe to speak a little bit about the how the concerns have shifted or changed over the last 3 years. You've been traveling the country talking to people the last 3 years. I'm curious if you've seen any migration of thought from the early days to what you're seeing now.
Yeah, there's a couple thought processes that I could take you down this road, but the buy-in for government agencies in general is like when I had my first use case where it was like the city minutes, I'm like, all right, I've got a viable solution here. The attorneys, the IT team, finance, the mayor's office, those were all people that I had to show the value of. And then I remember having a meeting, a department head meeting, where I went through and I said, all right, every department, there are specific use cases that you can use, whether it's police department, heat maps, and like crime rates in specific times of day, or fire where we're most vulnerable with our dry lands and stuff like that. I wanted to open their eyes. The other interesting thing is the people that I brought along with, and the people that joined is yourself, Micah, and then like Robert Height from
Yeah.
North Carolina, the online community. When AI first started coming out, and we started talking about this online and other places, at times it can feel very vulnerable because you probably, like myself, met a lot of people with fear and misunderstanding and anxiousness with AI. And so it was really important to connect with people that were making similar movements and similar like ideas and thinking about the big picture. And I vividly remember one of your webinar, not webinars, it was a YouTube video where you took an image of a downtown area and said, I want to do a career fair, or not a career fair, a fair or a um, outdoor event, and have AI synthesize the information for you. And it gave you where the kids zone would be and where the lost and
Mhm.
found would be and where the EMTs would be. And I'm like, this is amazing because we do big Fourth of July uh, events and fairs every year. And could we take our same model and put it in AI and make improvements
Yeah.
and really start to think about different ideas differently? And so sharing those ideas online was a lot of fun, and getting other ideas out there, and then just bringing in the community of like-minded people and about changing and how they're changing and thinking about ideas differently was really a fascinating
Yeah.
idea.
I think it's important too. I think of the folks. In fact, just last week my family and I took a vacation up to the Oregon coast, and on the way up there, I stopped and saw uh, a friend of mine in North Bend, the city manager out there. And the reason why we had connected was because of AI, right? And so
Yeah,
because of that connection with AI, he and I had a quick conversation in his office. He was talking about his the history of his city and what he's done there, and got some good ideas and stuff. We talked about AI for a little bit, but most of the conversation was not AI related. But that's because of ChatGPT, of LinkedIn, of having those connections and going beyond just the screens and things like that to actually having real human connection, which I think is super super important in our world today. I think it's something that
yeah,
we have a longing for human connection, and where we can help facilitate that. And I think AI can be a powerful way to help facilitate that if we're open to it and receptive to it as well too.
yeah. Well, and I've even had Robert from North Carolina. He came to town, so we went out to dinner. I've gone up to Boise
Awesome.
to visit, and I visited
Yeah.
the Boise. I can't remember his name right now, but he's big in AI. I'm pretty sure he's been on your webinar, but
Yeah.
um, it's just fun to have those connections and meet have people cross your paths that you've never thought they would cross your paths before.
Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for engagement and again, things beyond AI, right?
Yeah.
Where you have someone you can call, a trusted partner, a trusted thought leader, where you can have someone you can pick up the phone and call and say, "Hey, I have this going on in my city, or I'm dealing with this here. What are your thoughts? Give me some of your," because of the way in which they approach a singular topic like AI, you realize that they're a good thinker, they're a good
Yeah.
thought leader, things like that. As
Yeah.
you look back on AI and you look back on your AI journey from 2022 to now 26, 4 years back, what would you have paid attention sooner? And what are some of the things that maybe initially you thought this was a technical problem, but now in retrospect you would say, yeah, that was really more of a leadership issue than a technical issue?
Uh, a couple thought processes on this too. So looking back, what I wish I would have done sooner is, even though you don't need to know like coding to vibe code, I wish I've always thought about learning like the Pythons and all that stuff because I think I would understand it even more than I do so now. I'm trying to play a catch-up game right now.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is one of the things I focus on when I present is I always end with the same like tagline. And my tagline is AI is going to keep on getting better at being AI, and as humans, we need to get better at being human.
Hmm.
So really like make connections, invite people over for dinner, have a game night with friends and family, join community groups, whether it's a Jeep Club, bike club, running club, something. Make sure we are protecting our mental mind more so than our work mode. I think we put a lot of pressure on our titles and what
Hmm.
we do, and those are going to shift. And when they do, it can put you in a pretty dark place. And so I
Hmm.
want to make sure people are aware and prepared to have community members to fall back onto and making sure that we are protecting that vulnerability because it's coming.
Yeah.
So that's like one of my like taglines that I want to share with everyone in the world. And then how like the technical problems, it's gonna get easier as we go along, but really it's gonna be about people showing and telling what they're doing and how they are doing it specifically. I can present, and you know this too, Micah, you can present for hours. And if
Hmm.
you don't show it in action, they're going to walk away with nothing to take back because it's not going to connect. And so when you really want to make a difference, you literally have to turn the AI model on and say, okay, this is what I mean. This is how I'm doing it. This is how you can do it. And then they have something tangible that they can grasp onto and say, all right, let me start thinking about this in a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I think having those moments too of taking the time to show, right? I love what Nicole Bennett at the Minor Center out in Lafayette College talks about. She likes to tell her colleagues, "Hey, can I show you how to save 10 minutes of your day?" Right?
Yeah.
And it's super. It's a great introduction. I think she's brilliant in how she words that,
Yeah.
and she sits down and shows them, "Okay, here's something possible you can do with AI and things like that." I think it's fascinating as we kind of close things out here. I think it's rather interesting that you're saying the same thing. Last week or last month, we had Dr. Scott Andrews on, and he kind of echoed the same sentiment about, you know, in a world where AI is becoming increasingly more common, more used. We're seeing these automations that are coming out and things like that, and AI keeps getting better and better. Really the proper um the proper posture is becoming better at being human, of
Yeah.
doing those things like having connections,
Yeah.
of inviting people over for dinner, of being involved in your community, whether it be in your civic leagues, in your churches, in your
Hmm.
neighborhoods, whatever that looks like, of having those areas of community, of being human, of having friendships, of things like that that really matter the most in our day and age today.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was
French.
talking with my yeah
Oh,
friendships.
go. I was just gonna say
Yeah.
friendships that go beyond the phone. Like,
Yes.
don't
Yes.
hide behind the social media aspect of it. Like, go to someone's office and ask them about their day and what their weekends plans are. Like, we've forgotten how to do that, and our grandparents in the 80s did it wonderfully, and we need to get
Yeah.
back to that time.
Yes, yeah. There's a I was in the car for 40 hours with my family in the past week driving to Oregon and back. And one of the conversations we had with my 12-year-old was what the world was like pre 9/11, and just
Oh.
the how that has completely changed our world today and what that means and things like that. And one of the comments we were talking about was, there was no social media. And he
Mhm.
goes, "What do you mean? Social media has always existed, right?" And so but at first you're like, no, it doesn't. Like, come on, kid. It hasn't always existed. It came out, 2008 time period, that kind of thing. But you think about that and you think about this next generation of our community, right? Especially those who are in grade school or in high school, of knowing that they've grown up with only knowing this, right? That's
Mhm.
all they've ever known, right? In fact, the conversation in my household right now is whether or not my son should have a smartphone. And right now the answer is heck no. Like, so, and we explained to him, like, well, if there's an emergency. I said, your mom and I grew up and we didn't have a phone and we figured things out, right? Like, it's okay. You can figure things out. But I think that's really important to understand that there's a generation that's upcoming that
Yeah.
that has always had technology, has always had social media. And it is extremely important for us to develop those traditions, to develop those practices, those liturgies of being involved in other people's lives, of having other people involved in our lives and things like that, because that's how we make things better. That's how we avoid things like the disinformation and misinformation and hallucinations.
Yeah.
Isn't necessarily by having more AI models, but it's by having a sense of truth and a way to be able to interact and understand not only is the information accurate or things like that, but how does this impact the people around me as well too.
Yeah.
So super glad you said that. Thanks for bringing that up. It echoes, like I said, it echoes what Scott said last month as well too. And I'm really glad that this is kind of it's it's bubbling up to the surface once again in our conversations. I think that's really the crux of the AI leadership is being more human.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing we want is an AI to come in and make us more efficient, more and benefit us, and then we sit behind a phone and we don't do anything with that time gained. Like,
Mm-hmm.
continue your education, be a better person, invoke kindness, create joy for yourself. I think this is a great opportunity where we can drive ourselves in the direction we want to go, and we have a lot of tools at our hands and by our sides, and it's up to you to make it work out to the best you can. So it really is, and not necessarily about making your life easier. It's going to take work, but it should be fun while you go
Yeah.
along.
Yeah. Brooke, thanks for sharing your insights. Thanks for allowing us to pick your brain. You have a busy day today, so I appreciate you carving some time out for us and sharing this. This has been a fascinating conversation. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure folks in the webinar have, and those who are watching later on the road on YouTube are going to learn a lot from this as well too. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Micah and Brooke. Both of you. It's really great conversation. I really leaned into a lot of what you were talking about. Some of my takeaways. Well, one, I loved your comment, Brooke. Don't let people who don't know AI write AI policies. That's really important. And but secondly, that you have to continue to know what good is
Mhm.
in your industry. I love that. That's really helpful. I love especially though your comments about we have more time. What are we going to do with it? And it tied me back into the principles of servant leadership,
Mhm.
about half of which have to do with cultivating healthy, meaningful relationships. So we should use AI as leaders, as servant leaders, to provide ourselves more time for listening, to lean into
Yeah.
empathy, building a sense of community you talked about, even the matter of nurturing people's spirits. And that can be something internal because you mentioned this can be kind of intimidating
Mhm.
and devastating, disruptive. So we need nurturing. Leaders bring their calmness to a situation so that other people can find their calmness.
Yeah.
And you've reminded us of that, and it's been great. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you, Lisa Shook, for your work behind the scenes as always. And we hope that you have a great week, everyone.